All right, coaches, welcome back to 92 Meshgroup channel. I'm really excited today. I got a guest in my area. He doesn't need any introduction. And then if you need him to sub in for the national anthem, he can do that for you too. Mr. Earl Vaughan, he's a member of the North Carolina Sports Hall of Fame, media journalist extraordinaire. Did my first interview as a head coach. And I thought it would be interesting for us today to talk about the role of the media with a young head coach. We've been talking about becoming a head coach and some of the things that you face within the school building. But one of the things I think is often overlooked is the relationship that you have with your local media. So I thought I would try to get Earl on. He's semi-retired now, doing a lot of good things. But I'll never forget my first interview with him. I said some things in the heat of the moment, and he looked at me and he said, "Now, Coach, are you sure you want to say that?" And I've never forgotten that. And it always made me know that after the game, take a deep breath no matter what before you talk to reporters. And luckily for him, he's such a pro and such a compassionate guy, and he loves coaches, that he looked at me and he took care of me as a young coach. So Earl, thanks for coming on the channel. And I just think there's a lot of things that can be learned in this conversation. So what are some of the keys that you think for a young head football coach in dealing with the media?
Well, George, thank you for having me on. And first thing I would say is a memory that goes back to my very first days as a summer intern with Fayetteville Observer way back in 1972. One of the first, well, actually, the first head coach I ever met was the legendary John Daskell, who at that time was, of course, at Reed Ross High School, would later go on to coach at Terry Sanford. But Coach Daskell came into the sports department during the middle of the summer, and it was an annual practice of his to let us know when the photo day was going to be for his team, so we could go ahead and get it on our calendar and go out there to take team pictures. Now, unfortunately, that's something a lot of newspapers don't have the time to do anymore, or the space, but it was something that was very much a part of what we did back then. And it taught me a lesson early on that it is critical for a coach to promote your own program. Don't wait for the media to call you looking for a story. You need to call them. And even if it's not a good idea, call them to develop a rapport with the media that covers you, either locally, on a state level, maybe even if the situation arises, on a national level. But develop a rapport with the people that you know who've shown an interest in your program, or publications near to you, close to you, maybe even to contact publications that cover some of your opposing schools. And if you're in a county where you play schools from other counties or other cities, because it can be helpful to them to know about what's going on with your program. But if I can sell, on any one point more than anything else, it's to promote yourself. And if the coach himself doesn't have time to do it, get someone on your staff. Even if you want to reach out, and this is something that some people rarely do, but I think it's worth a try. If you've got a kid in your school newspaper program, school journalism classes, reach out to them and see if they'd be willing to act as a kind of a sort of volunteer sports information director or something. And if you don't have the money to pay them, give them free tickets to all your athletic events. Give them a season pass that would allow them to get themselves in to go to see ball games for free. There are ways you can compensate people, without actually having to spend money. But the one thing I would stress more than anything else is promote yourself, promote your program, and reach out to the media and let them know that you're available.
Now, one of the things that I think a lot of guys would say in response to that, Earl, is, with the advent of Twitter and Instagram and all these social medias, a lot of coaches are on social media and do a lot with social media. I do a lot with Twitter and Instagram, not only with the football, but with 92 Meshgroup and things like that. But why is it still important for me not only to be on social media as Coach Coltharp promoting Fairmont High School or whatever, entity I'm promoting, but to also reach out to you as the media professional to do it as well?
Well, the media professional, it's just like, when you tap into different followers on your Twitter or Facebook or all the other different social media platforms. Anytime you link up with somebody else, odds are they possibly have a different or a wider audience than you do. Right. They have people who follow them who maybe don't have a specific interest in your program, who may be just interested, like, in high school sports in general, which is mainly what I promote on my social media accounts. But anytime you can connect with someone else like that, you broaden your base. You possibly make contact with people in your community or fans in your county or whatever, who may not be very familiar with what's going on at your school. So anything you can do to throw out a wider net, to get the word out to a larger audience. That's why you need to continue to promote. And also, again, it helps to promote your social media account, because if they get into a habit of following you, retweeting you to their account or whatever, then that's going to help to develop and broaden your audience and cause more people to come and look at your social media feeds, and then in turn, hopefully, build more interest in what's going on in your total program.
So, you've been doing this, like you said, you started in 1972, uh, and you just, like I said, you're semi-retired now, and I can remember when I was in high school, playing in the area, we all every Friday morning we wanted to see your picks and things like that. And then as I moved on to college and then came back as an assistant, and then dealing with you as a head coach and just different roles and stuff like that. So you've been doing this a long time. You've seen them all. I mean, you've interviewed Hall of Famers in high school and all this other stuff like that. As far as young head football coaches, or not even necessarily young head football coaches, as in new head football coaches, guys who haven't been head coaches before, what would be maybe three things that you would want to suggest to them as advice to get them out, when answering, talking to you after the game or before the game? Let's do before and after the game.
Well, one thing that I would stress is that as part of developing that relationship, one thing you've got to understand, and if you're dealing with somebody who is a true professional and who takes this job seriously the way that they should, uh, as a reporter, I'm going to run into situations where I'm going to have to write something that I know is going to upset some people and is probably not going to be well received within a program, particularly if it deals with a story that is negative in nature. Can be from anything to a team that's not performing well, to, and these were the most difficult and unfortunate things I had to write about, when either coaches or athletes became involved in legal problems. Uh, Trust me, I don't know of anybody in my profession who truly enjoys writing a story like that. I know I never did. Unfortunately, it was the nature of the job, and it was something I had to do. And the big thing, and I've dealt with coaches over the years that I've had to do this, with something related to their program. The main thing is that regardless of the relationship you have with the reporter, don't take it personally at all, please. And I know that's easy for me to say, but the reporter is doing what the job requires, and that is to present the news as fact, without any kind of opinion or slant. And if they do that in a fair and proper way, then that's just the nature of the business. And so, and again, I realize it's easy for me to say that to coaches, but you have to try to understand and accept it as just part of what they're doing. And as long as they're not being, malicious or going out of their way to stir up something that's, just a kind of a fringe type situation, then it's just a part of what reporting is. And that's the most difficult part about the relationship. I know that over the years, I've had some coaches that I had outstanding relationships with. And there were different times where I had to report on things that I didn't want to, but they were out there, and I had to write about them. But we were able to work through it and move on and continue to have a positive relationship, in dealing with that. So, if that's the one point that I would stress, I think that's the biggest thing. You don't want an unfortunate situation like that to permanently ruin a relationship. Just get through it, allow time to pass, and move forward to a better time and place.
Right. As far as after the game, what are some common mistakes that you see, and some things that maybe guys should be cognizant of saying or doing, in talking to the media, especially, um, in maybe the negative aspect of the game? You lose a big game. I know a lot of times, um, in our area, the winning head coach gets to talk to the newspaper, and the newspaper really don't say nothing to the losing head coach, which I used to get upset about when I was a young coach because I didn't understand why. But as like I became a veteran coach, I really appreciated it because I didn't have to say something. But a lot of times, especially in playoff games and things like that, you're gonna have to speak to the media after a big loss. And what would be some suggestions you would give to coaches when dealing with that kind of situation?
Well, I don't like to suggest this, but I certainly think you know, it's an old tried and true statement, but it is very, very true, especially in these situations. Sometimes the old line about discretion being the better part of valor, uh, particularly in a difficult situation, and that's when you're going to have problems more than any other. Obviously, if it was a very disappointing loss, it was a very emotional loss, and you find yourself just having a really difficult time, putting thoughts into words and trying to avoid saying something bad. One thing I would definitely stress is try not to make it personal. Again, uh, obviously, you don't want to do anything that's going to hurt the feelings of one of your athletes who possibly, if they made a crucial mistake that played a role in losing a game. You don't want to say something to that athlete or about that athlete that is going to reflect badly on him or her or their families in some way. And I know again it's easy for me to sit back and say that because I've not been in a situation where somebody was asking me hard questions about a major disappointment that I suffered in my life. But obviously, the main thing you don't want to do is to permanently burn any kind of bridges and cause hardship, within your community because of something negative you say. Uh, I think back to an old, I think it was Rasheed Wallace of the University of North Carolina. There was a stretch sometimes when people were interviewing him after games, and I don't know if he was just trying to avoid saying anything bad, or just didn't want to say something that was going to embarrass him. And so every question that he was asked, he had the same answer every time, and he would just simply say, "Both teams played hard, my man. Both teams played hard." No matter what the question was, that was his stock answer. So sometimes if you're in a jam and you just are afraid that you're going to say something that is going to upset people or that you're going to regret later, uh, sometimes that's the best approach. Now, I know some of my writing brethren would sharply criticize that and say, well, no, you really need to say what you think. And I respect that. I certainly do. As a journalist, I know that it's much better if you've got quotes with some meat on them to be able to use when you're putting a story together. But at the same time, given a choice between saying something that's totally out of bounds, that's going to be screamed in the headlines, the next day, uh, you're much better off of just walking the straight and narrow, trying to remain as calm as you can, and just say, look, it was a difficult loss. I'm proud of my team, and I congratulate my opponent, and just move on to the next thing without having to say
So
something that's really going to fire the situation up.
I could talk to you for days and days and days about this stuff, man. Because like I said, I just respect you so much, and the guys who were my mentors had such great admiration for you that I learned to real quick to do that. And talking to those guys, the Milton Butzes and the Dean Sappos and the Russell Stones and the Bob Parolas of the world, um, I was always told this, and this is what I do when I deal with the media in particular, is that when things are going great, it's because of your assistants and your team, and when things are going bad, you as the head coach have to do better. And if you stay with that thought process, it's going to keep you out of trouble with the media, and everybody's going to be happy. And that's kind of one of the things that I learned. And like I said, Earl, I just wanted to have you on for a little bit because like I said, I really appreciate as a young coach you looking at me and saying, "Are you sure you want to say that?" And just to let you know that made a difference for me as I moved forward in my career, and even as we continue that career. But just want to thank you for having on the channel. You do write some stuff here locally still. What is your Twitter?
I'm working with City View Magazine. I'm writing a weekly online newsletter dealing mostly with high school athletics. It's called the Press Box, and you can subscribe to it, get it delivered to you free in your email. If you like, just go to our website, cityviewNC.com, and there should be information on there about how to subscribe to the Press Box newsletter, which, as I said, comes out via email every Friday. And with the economy we got right now, you can't beat the price. So
Yes.
free is as good as it gets. So,
And
welcome you to sign up to that.
those of you guys who are in the North Carolina area, you guys are familiar with Earl and some of the stuff that he's done over the years. I mean, just a class act guy, and there's a lot to be learned. And as we continue this, you want to be a head coach series. If there's some other things like this you want to hear, down in the comments below in the video, let me know, and we'll search some people out, because really what I'm trying to do is help you the same way people help me. So that being said, as always, spin it to win.